13, and thank you for coming today, and we know you're going to learn a lot of great things about social media. We have a lot of great experts here to share, and as you know, if you are heavily involved in social media, everything changes daily. So everything that you are learning today, tomorrow there will be new things, and I think that's what's so exciting about it. But our speakers that are here today are well-versed and knowledgeable about different areas, and we're very excited to have you here today and hope you're going to learn some great things that you can take back to use in your business or your organization. And I want to start by, so I can get some things out of my hand here. We have a t-shirt. The sponsors, of course, we will bring yours around to you, but it says BAMIT, and if you'd like to purchase one, they're out front on the desk, and they're $15. So I'd like to go ahead and Applebee's, Kentucky Innovative Networks, Sweet and Sassy, Ashland Town Center Mall, and we thank you all so much for helping us bring this event. It's a great opportunity for our community. We were talking earlier that people pay thousands of dollars if you get on a plane and register for a conference in another city, and it's a great way for you to come here and learn lots of things. And I'd like to know by show of hands, how many of you have never been in the Paramount Arts Center before? Okay, well, we're glad you got to come and join us today. And I know we have people from everywhere. I've seen the registrations, and so we're very excited to have you here. And I'm also the Director of Social Media and Marketing for the Paramount, so we love this theater. We have lots of great things going on, which means today all of our exhibitors, when you pack up and get out, we've got a rehearsal coming in at 6 o'clock. So we have there's something every night here, and it's just amazing. And for 81 years, we've been a part of this community, and it's a great place to be. I would like to go ahead and say, if you didn't get one of these schedules, they're at the front desk, so feel free to go out and pick one up. And I tried to color code it so you will know that the sessions are in 4 places. However, there is one change. We have this is the main theater, that's the T. All of the sessions are for the banquet room, and the rehearsal hall are through these doors. So the banquet room is right, just walk out the door and down the stairs, and that's the basement. And then you can take the stairs or the elevator to the 3rd floor, and that's the rehearsal hall. So that's the R. The M is for marquee, but this morning, anything that says marquee will be in this main theater. So the 2 classes, Facebook for Beginners and Girls Who Blog and Make Money Doing It, will also be here. Roundtable discussions today will be held at these tables here, and we'll have a sign on it so you'll know which session, and then one in the marquee room. The healthcare session will be in the marquee room. So if you have any questions, I'm Jenny, Jenna, Melanie, Josh, Paige, 2 Joshes. There are a bunch of people running around that are happy to help, so just stop and ask any questions. And I'm cutting into Eric Decker's time here, so I want to just quickly let you know about the classes for the change in the schedule. So if you have any questions, just come see me. Thank you all for coming today. Thank you to all of our sponsors. Thank you to all of our great speakers who traveled from everywhere to bring us great social media word today. And I'm going to hand it over now to Eric Deckers. He's an author. He's amazing. I'm going to let him tell you all about himself, and he's written some great books. And he's going to teach you today about the rise and fall and rise again of content marketing and SEO. And thank you all for coming today, and I hope you have a great day and learn lots of things. And one more thing, we are videotaping all of the sessions today, so any classes that you can't attend, you can log on later. If you have any questions about that, email me and we can give you the code to log in. But if we know you can't be everywhere at the same time, so just we'll make it available so you can see the sessions after today. So thank you very much, and now I'll turn it over to Eric.
Thank you. How's everybody doing? I'm getting over a cold, so if I sound over stuff here, if I get the big booming cough, that's what it is. So my name is Eric Deckers, and I'm from Indianapolis, and I've written a few books on social media. I wrote Branding Yourself with a friend of mine, Kyle Lacey, in 2010. and I wrote No Bullshit Social Media with Jason Pauls, who's from Louisville, in 2011, and then we just finished the manuscript for another book called The Owned Media Doctrine, which is about content marketing for enterprise level companies. And I wrote that with another friend of mine, Colby Jackson, who his company ran the social media command center for the Super Bowl in Indianapolis 2 years ago. So I do a lot of writing and a lot of talking about content marketing, but it wasn't until recently that I realized how old content marketing is and how long I've actually been doing it without realizing I was doing it. So before we get started, anybody on Twitter? Great. I love it when people are tweeting. I like to see the tops of people's heads while they're doing this. And so feel free to send tweets out to friends. My username is eDeckers, and the hashtag for today is TheBAM2013. So a couple ideas to get you started. eDeckers is talking about content marketing. It's BAM 2013. We're learning about the history of content marketing from eDeckers. And the last one, eDeckers, is so awesome. Please do that one a lot. My wife watches this. How many people have seen this ad or heard this tagline? They laughed when I sat down at the piano, but when I started to play, anybody even know that one? Anybody old enough to have seen that one when it came out? It came out in 1926, and it was one of the first of its kind. It was one of those things that people laughed when I introduced this as a headline, and until they saw the sales, because it was part of a long one-page ad that was in a magazine, and this was long-form advertising. And then the first two columns of text are all about this guy from the headline who said people laughed when he sat down to play. He tells a story, I thought it was kind of funny, he tells a story about how he learned to play piano by correspondence. And he wrote to the U.S. Music School, and they sent him some packets. And even though he had never played a note before, he was able to read how to play a song, and he sat down and played it and impressed everybody. So I would like to read that, because I can't play for anything. So we did this. The advertising and marketing industry, we did this, and it was extremely successful. This is constantly voted as one of the most effective ads in history. It's always making the top 10 list of best ads, most effective ads, biggest sales. So I can't understand when we did this kind of long-form marketing that then we went back to something like this. The Schlitz beer ad. Don't worry, darling, we didn't burn the beer. Or this one for McDonald's. Real good and still only 15 cents. Or this one, nobody's perfect. So we had success with long-form advertising, and we started doing things like this. This was my favorite. More doctors smoke Camels than any other cigarette. You know how they did that? The Camel company sent cigarettes out to doctors who were smoking, and then a couple days later called them and said, what brand of cigarette do you smoke? And so they just named the pack that they happened to have right there in their hand, which was one that the company had sent them a few days before. And they all said Camel. So obviously if the doctor smoked it, it must be healthy for you. So there were some people, like Dan Kennedy, who said, wait, there's something to this long-form marketing. We don't have to have just a picture and a couple of words. I mean, that's great for brand building and top-of-mind marketing, but we want long-form sales letters. And so Dan Kennedy started specializing and charging tens of thousands of dollars to companies to write these 5- and 6-page sales letters. Have you ever gotten those? Those really long sales letters? I look at those things, and I think this is stupid, I'm not going to read this. I'll look at the first paragraph, and before I know it, I'm at the end, and I want to buy whatever it is. Yes, I want the commemorative Elvis plate. So he found that this long-form marketing, this long-form letter writing, where we're just giving pieces of information after pieces of information, is actually very effective. So I was doing this without even realizing this. I didn't even know that this kind of thing existed. I've been doing sales and marketing for 19 years now. I started working for my father-in-law commercialized overseas. We also sold a product called reflective insulation. You may have seen this. It's bubble wrap with 2 layers of foil on either side of it. And we would sell it to farmers to put in their poultry houses. And our profit margins were such that if we made $10 a roll, that was a good thing. And we would sell 40-foot container loads of this stuff, 350 rolls of it. And on a good day, we would make $1,000 per container load. So the margins were so small. And so my father-in-law says to me one day, we're going to drop the foil product. We're going to drop our foil, not our foil, but like our foil. We're going to drop our foil from the product line. And I said, well, I want to do something with this first. Don't drop it just yet. Because it's 5% of total sales. Why do we even put the effort into it? We lose money just by doing all the paperwork. The cost of doing the paperwork is like less than or more than what we're earning. And so I've got an idea. Let me try something. We're going to use this internet thing. And we had gotten online just 2 years before, and my brother-in-law, who worked for the company, he's now a web designer, or the head web designer for Biomet, which is, they make joint replacements. He worked there, and we created our first website in 1996, and everybody in the industry laughed at us because, it's a fad. The internet's a fad. It's not going to go anywhere. Why are you putting all this time and effort? Why did you put $50 into the internet? It's a waste of time. So in 1998, when we're getting some web traffic, and we actually got, like after a year, got a big sale of our foil to Australia, and my father-in-law, who was rather against us having a web page, it was suddenly his idea to have a big sale. So I said, hey, we're going to take our website, and I'm going to put some information about our foil on it. And I'm going to start talking about our foil and see what happens. And we're going to sell it to homeowners. And because the homeowners don't know the poultry market, we're going to sell it at full price, $170 per roll. We're going to see what happens. And so he said, okay, whatever. So I put a couple pages up about it and did a couple of SEO tricks, search engine optimization. I had to read up on what that was and put that up. And then people started calling. Excuse me. People started calling, and I would spend an hour with them on the phone. Somebody would call in, I'd talk to them for an hour, I'd answer all their questions, and at the end of the hour, I'd close the sale. And this went on for a couple of months, and me, being the lazy salesperson, said, I don't want to talk to people for an hour. I want to see if I can cut that down. So I'm going to take a couple of the questions that they've asked, and I'm going to add that to the page. And so I took 3 or 4 different pieces of information, and I put them on the page, and you can see, I don't know if you can really see, but down at the bottom, I want to use our foil in, and we've got my home, an ag or an animal building, a warehouse, different places that people could use it. And the idea was that somebody would click that, and they say, I want to use our foil in my home, and they click the link, and they can read about all the different places they could use it in their home. And pretty soon I was getting the phone calls down to 30 minutes. I thought, well, that kind of worked out. And I heard about this thing called the frequently asked questions page, which I thought was awesome. This is great. Why haven't people done this before? And so I built one of those and put more information. And I kept finding that as I put more and more information on the web, not only were we showing up higher and higher on the search engine, but my phone calls were getting shorter and shorter. And people were reading all kinds of information. And so I did a little test, and I found I had created a frequently asked questions page. And in a couple of different places, I was using construction terms. And I said, if you want to know what these construction terms are, click here. So I had a construction frequently asked questions page. And the very last question on the page was, what is the difference between a joist and a girder? Anybody know what the difference between a joist and a girder is? Joyce wrote Ulysses and Gooder wrote Faust. And I put that at the very bottom of the page, and I said, congratulations, you found possibly the dumbest smart joke there is. If you email me and let me know you found it, I will give you a discount on your next order. And then I counted those, and I found, and by looking at the logs, I found that roughly 1 out of every 20 visitors to the site got there to that point. And 1 out of every 20 people who got there emails. So not a big percentage, but what it told me was there were people who were reading all of that. 5% of the people were reading all of these pages and getting to the very end of this construction terms page, but then 5% of them were actually getting the discount. So I knew that people were reading all of this stuff, and I thought, this is great, I need to do more of this. The other thing that I started doing, this is back, by now we're looking at 2000, 2001, Google said, hey, if you start getting backlinks to your site, we'll count that as a vote. If people link back to your site, that's a vote that people like it, and so we're going to assume that your site must be popular. So the more backlinks you have, the better it is. Well, I also write a newspaper humor column, and I belong to an email list called the Netlet, and because we're all internet writers, so we're not very smart. And I created a big list of other humor writers on the internet. And I made this for everybody. I emailed everybody on my list, and I said, give me your name, the name of your website, and a 20-word description, and I'll put this on the list. And then what I want you to do, because I'm going to put this on my website, but I'm making this as generic as possible, what I want you to do is take this list and put it on your own site. And I said, here is why. Because if you look very carefully at the period at the end of my own entry, I linked the period back to my page, my work page. So the more of you who do this, the higher my rank is on Google. Now you can't do that today, that's cheating. And Google knows this, and they will ban your site. But at the time, nobody was doing this, and I must have had 40 or 50 people doing this, and so my page ultimately outranked everybody when you search for reflective insulation, including the Reflective Insulation Manufacturers Association. I was outranking like the people who were the trade association for all of us. Sorry. So I kept just building information and adding content, and I would even go on to these forum discussions. Anybody remember Usenet? Anybody use the Usenet? Yeah, the Usenet had discussion groups for people who were doing home maintenance and home repair and all the do-it-yourselfers. And if anybody had questions about insulation, I would answer them. But I wouldn't say, I have the product, you need to solve your problem. Rather, I would answer the question. If they wanted to know, how do I keep mold from building up in the insulation of my basement or my crawl space, what do I do? I'd tell them. And how do I keep insects out of the insulation in my attic? I'd tell them. And if somebody said, hey, it's really hot here in Texas, how do I beat the heat? I'd tell them. And I would tell them about the product, but I wouldn't tell them it was my product. I would just say, you need a radiant barrier in your attic, staple it to your rafters, and you're good. And what I found was people liked the answer I was giving, and it was, as complete and as informational as I could. They would go search for me. They would say, why does this guy know so much about this? And they would search for me. Or they would search for the product, and they would find the product on Google. And then they would put two and two together and realize it was me, and they would email me or call me and say, I saw your answer on the Usenet. I want to buy some of it. So I was just giving information to people without selling it, without selling the product. I was just giving information that people wanted. And ultimately, that's what content marketing is we're giving valuable information to people who need it without trying to sell them. We're educating them without selling them. And what happens is people learn to trust us for that. So ultimately, I left that world. Whole big long story. I could go on for 2 hours about how our office manager embezzled from us and took $250,000, and I moved to Indianapolis. But it was just ugly. What I did do was I ended up working at the Indiana State Department of Health. And for 2 months, I was the media relations director, which meant anytime the media called and had a question out of for some initiative we were doing, I took the call. And after 2 months, I thought, this is kind of boring. We have an opening for the crisis communication director. which I soon came to call the oh shit PR guy. Because that's what I said whenever something happened. Because I was the guy, the media relations guy was the oh good PR guy. Like somebody called, oh good, we're doing this thing, and they would get the call, and then something bad would happen, and I would get the call, and I'd say, oh shit. So does anybody remember the lead toy, or the bendable children's toys that they were handing out in libraries in 2006, and they were all contaminated with lead? Do you all remember that? We started that. we didn't start the toys. The whole reason you know about it is because I got a call after 3 weeks on the job of the crisis communication center. I had not responded to any incidents. Basically, I just knew that crisis communication is regular PR done faster and with a more sense of urgency. You swear more because it's scary. You know, we were training for things like bird flu. What happens when we get bird flu? What happens if somebody drops anthrax on the Indy 500? You know, all those wonderful and fun things. And I get this call, and they say, you need to come down to the legal department. And I thought, well, I haven't been here long enough to be in trouble, so I'll go see what's up. And I go into the room, and there are 12 people sitting around the big conference table, and they all look very serious and a little scared. And somebody says, you know, this is Peggy, she's the lead prevention nurse for the state health department. And she told us, I found a children's, these toys that they're giving away in the Monroe County Children's Library. Monroe County is home of Bloomington, home of IU. And she said the children's librarian there and the lead prevention nurse there did a swab test on these things and found that they are contaminated with lead. And we've been giving them away. Or they've been giving them away. And she said, I hesitate bringing this up, but we have another county, a couple counties away, that have also been giving them away. What do we do? And they're all looking at me like I'm the crisis guy. What do we do? So it was pure dumb luck, but it was my first response. We had something at 2 different places in the state, so I said the one thing that I could think of. Let's send out a press release to every media outlet in the state, and we'll see what happens. And they all said, oh, that's a good idea. We'll do that. What do we do now? I don't know. I'll write the press release. And then I said, I'll write the press release. We'll meet back here in an hour, which is that impressive. I'm going to write a press release in an hour. We'll write the press release. We'll meet back here in an hour. And what we say in the press release will kind of inform our next steps. What they didn't know is I knew how to write press releases. I was actually done in 30 minutes, and I just sat at my desk for half an hour just staring at it and making sure I spelled all the words right. We meet back in an hour, and we said, okay, we're going to tell all the libraries to recall the toys. You know, they can give something else to the kids, but we're going to recall the toys, and then the libraries need to take the toys to the county health department because the county health department will know how to properly dispose of lead-contaminated toys, right? They said, that's a great idea. So we did all of this. We sent this out to the media. We told the library this is what you could expect. We did not tell the county health departments these things were coming. We have 92 county health departments in Indiana, and they had no idea. When people just bring in boxes of toys now, what the hell do we do with these? I don't know. They said no. So, yeah, we got a couple of problems after that. So we send these out, and then I forget all about it. And I get a call 2 days later, and this guy says, hi, Jerry, I'm the head of the New Jersey State Library Association, and I saw a blog post about these toys. I said, what does it mean you're the head of the New Jersey Library Association? He said, well, in New Jersey we have a centralized library system, and I am in charge of all the libraries in New Jersey. And in Indiana, we have a decentralized system. Every county is in charge of their own library system. In New Jersey, they have thousands of libraries, and he's in charge of all of them. And we've been giving these toys to all of our kids who are in the summer reading program. And I said, oh, shit. And he goes, oh, yeah. He said, what do I do? And I said, well, I'll tell you what. I will send you our press release. And that kind of gave us the guide of what we were going to do. You use that, and share that with your library. Again, take the choice to the county health department, who I still think he didn't tell the county health department what was going on. And he said, well, tell you what, I'm also on this listserv, this email listserv for librarians around the country. Can I give it to them? I said, sure. So let me do this. I will write up notes. It'll sound a little more formal and official, and you feel free to share that with your listserv. And so I did that and sent it off to him, and then I forgot all about it again, which was the last time I ever did, because I get a call 2 days later from a reporter from the newspaper in Orange County, California. And she said, what can you tell me about these bendable toys at children's libraries? And I said, oh yeah, I guess a couple of states were giving them out to kids, and so they're starting to do these recalls. And she said, oh no, it's not a couple of states, it's 17 states. And I said, oh shit. And she said, oh yeah, it's huge. I said, how are so many states hearing about this? And she said, I don't know. We keep getting these calls from librarians who got something on a listserv, and the Associated Press has picked it up and put it on the wire, and all these newspapers around this country are seeing the story, and they're calling their local libraries and saying, are you guys giving away these toys? And the librarians are all saying, oh my God, yes we are. And we're up to 17. And so I went online and I looked, and it was more than 17. It was every state had been giving away these toys. And the Associated Press, what they do is they send out a wire story to each newspaper, and then each newspaper can take the story and edit it and make it local. And so I did a Google search for lead-contaminated children's toys library, and there are just hundreds of stories that I'm clicking through, and Oklahoma and Alaska and Rhode Island and Kentucky and Nevada and everywhere. And they all have quotes from local librarians that says, yes, we've been giving it away, we're doing a recall, we'll take them to our county health department. And I realized how big this thing was. I finally quit counting at 500 stories. There were stories in all the papers in the U.S., Canada, England, Germany, India, and Taiwan about this recall. They recalled 385,000 toys from across the country. I mean, even Alaska, 385,000 toys, because apparently, and I guess we did start this, there was a group in Carmel that did not fundraisers, but they gave away little tchotchkes and knickknacks to children's libraries and schools. And they had bought a bunch of these things and sent them off to all the libraries, and that's where it started. But I was struck by the fact that the only reason that people knew about this was nothing I did. I took a wild guess on what we should do and got lucky. But it was a blog. The story ran in the Muncie Star Press. That's where I grew up, Muncie, Indiana, Wall State University. And a librarian blogger saw the story and posted it on her blog. And I don't even know who that was. I don't know if she was from Indiana or if she was from another part of the country. But the guy in New Jersey read the blog, and my name was mentioned in the article, and so he called me. But he was reading something about his industry from a librarian who writes about her industry. And she was kind of the voice of the industry. She was one of these professional librarians that this guy, the head of the New Jersey State Library Association, thought enough of her and her work to read her blog on a continual basis. And we just got lucky. So it exploded because of that. But then he was a content provider on this email listserv that all these other librarians are on, and they're all sharing professional knowledge with each other. So they're having all of these discussions, and here's another piece of content and another piece of information that he can point to and say, hey, this thing is happening here, have you all done this? So we were able to basically get this nationwide recall. What was funny was in the beginning, I found out later, the Monroe County librarian and the Monroe County lead prevention nurse, the two who started this, had 6 months earlier tested the toys and contacted the Consumer Product Safety Commission, the federal government, the people who are in charge of making sure we're not being poisoned by toys. And they sent them a sample, sent them a big write-up of what had happened, and didn't hear anything, didn't even get a phone call. And then, when this became an explosive national story, two guys showed up at the library from Washington. They said, hey, we heard you've been having some problems with toys. How can we help you? And so they were the ones who actually initiated that national recall. But we had to sort of get their attention by telling the rest of the country on it. So one of the things I trained for, like I mentioned earlier, was the flu pandemic. We were all worried about bird flu. Everybody remember 2006, 2007, they were all talking about bird flu, and we're keeping an eye on the chickens and all kinds of stuff like that. And that's where I spent a lot of my time. And I would train on that kind of thing. And, we'd have a big training session, and it was kind of scary. And I'd call my wife as I'm driving home, and I said, do we have enough food and stuff to stay in the house for 30 days if we ever need to self-quarantine? She's like, were you training on bird flu again today? Other days would be, hey, if there's ever an anthrax attack, I've been told that as a first responder, I have first access to all the antibiotics, so I will make sure you get some. You don't need to go stand in line at the distribution center. So my favorite, or actually her favorite, was if there is ever a loud explosion, really loud explosion from somewhere downtown, don't look in that direction because the mushroom cloud will make you go blind. Just drive up to your sister's in Fort Wayne, take the kids, go to Fort Wayne. I will come find you if I can. So that was the big nuclear test. So we trained for all of this, and I spent 18 months there, and then finally got tired of it and left to the private sector and sold direct mail and started doing social media and blogging about direct mail for us. And then eventually became or joined Professional Blog Service, which is the company I own now. But I started out as an employee. And in April 2009, I've been there for 2 months. And that's when, and I was sitting in a Buffalo Wild Wings, of all places, and we hear that swine flu has hit. Remember swine flu? H1N1? I thought, this is the ultimate irony that I'm sitting in the place that sells chicken wings, and it's the pigs that are going to kill us instead. So I'm sitting there in the Buffalo Wild Wings, and I go, because we had worked so hard at the state health department, and we put together this playbook that the first case of any kind of flu in the U.S., send out this press release and then take these next steps. And so I'm waiting. It's like a few hours after we announced it, and surely there's going to be something out by now. So I go to the website and there's nothing. And I'm looking on the news, the different news stations, and there's nothing. And I said, what's going on? So I called a friend of mine, and I said, hey, where is press release? Why haven't you guys announced anything? They said, oh, they're in a committee meeting, writing it. I said, what do you mean they're writing it? He said, yeah, they're writing the press release to announce what's going on. I said, you don't need to. There's a whole playbook. We wrote this. My staff and I got grant money to write this playbook. Where is it? They're not going to use it. They're writing their own press release. And I was surprised to not hear that they were first writing a mission statement of what the committee was going to do. But instead they had jumped right into the press release. We're working on that first. So I started watching Twitter because we still weren't, the state health department when I left in 2007 still thought it was 1987 because we were still emailing fax and press releases. And that was actually one thing I put a stop to. We were not faxing press releases anymore because every paper had email. So I started looking at Twitter and seeing who was talking about swine flu. And the hashtag, swine flu was the big one because that's what everybody was calling it. The CDC and the state health departments all around the country tried to call it the human influenza pandemic, which nobody, that doesn't fit in a tweet alone. So I did a search for swine flu, and I just started getting hundreds of tweets every few seconds for swine flu. So I had to narrow my search, and I said, anybody who's talking about Indiana and swine flu, show me that tweet. And so somebody sent out a tweet, does anyone know how swine flu is spread among humans? And so my crisis training kicked in. I responded to her, I said, swine flu is spread through droplets in air from sneezing and coughing. So cough into your sleep. And I linked to a video, an instructional video called Why Don't We Do It on Our Sleep. You can still find it on YouTube, it's hilarious. But it's all about why you should cough like this and not like this, and the chicks in his hand. And I retweeted stuff from the CDC. The CDC flu had a Twitter account, and they were giving the daily updates. And so in May 2009, we had 286 cases of swine flu, or as we had to start calling it H1N1 because all the pork producers were getting upset. And they said sales are going down. You cannot get sick from eating cooked pork products with swine flu, so you're all safe. But they were worried. In 2 days, I had not seen any kind of social media response from the state health department. And it was 24 hours before they got their first press release out. After CNN at 10 in the morning says, hey, we've got the first U.S. case of swine flu in Texas, 24 hours later, the state health department sent out their press release that said, hey, we've got the first case of swine flu in the U.S. These are the next steps we will be taking. By that point, the news media didn't speak to the state health department. Even though we were supposed to be the experts, we were the ones who were training on what that first response was. And we had received millions of dollars of grant money from the CDC and Homeland Security on how to train for this stuff. They weren't the experts on this. They weren't providing the content. They certainly weren't providing it in a timely manner. And one of the rules of crisis communication is to be first, be right, and be credible. And by not being first, they weren't credible at all. People were calling the local health departments, the news people were calling local health departments. I was on social media answering questions just because the health department and Homeland Security had a joint Twitter account that once a week they sent out a reminder for people to cough into their sleeve or to wash their hands after you blew the nose. But that was it. So they missed an opportunity to be the experts in the field with content because they didn't have the content. We could have been writing about and blogging about swine flu for a couple of years beforehand. So even if there's no press release forthcoming, the news media would have known who to go to, and the people would have known who to go to. The CDC was all over it. CDC emergency Twitter account is where you can go to see what the CDC is working on. So when I took this screenshot a year or two ago, it was after the Joplin tornado, so I guess it was 2 years ago. It was after the Joplin tornado. And they don't tweet anything unless there's an emergency. So you can go pay attention to them, do a special search for them on their Twitter account to make sure that you're seeing this news as it comes out. But the CDC has established their credibility by constantly writing about the different things that could be happening, that could affect us. They put out all kinds of content. My favorite one from about 3 years ago was when they wrote about how to cope with zombie attacks. I'm not kidding. This made the news. You know, the CDC, for all their good work that they do, they're kind of boring. It's the Center for Disease Control. It's the people that you hope you never hear from. You know, like, hey, we have this huge outbreak of a virus that will kill us, or we'll turn you into brain-eating zombies. And they said, hey, we're going to do this thing about zombies. And they said in the blog post and in the campaign and in all the educational materials, the spread of zombieism will happen by virus, much like bird flu. Here are the steps you can take to avoid spreading the zombie virus. Cough from your sleeve, wash your hands after you blow your nose, self-isolate so you don't spread it or catch it. And it was the very same thing that we tell people to avoid, catching a cold, catching flu, catching bird flu, catching swine flu. But this was the thing that made everybody pay attention to this. And it's like, oh, you tricked me. I learned something. We learned something about how to avoid viral contamination because the CDC was talking about zombies. And they didn't just write a single blog post about it. This was a whole campaign. They had campaign materials, and they talked about all the different ways that you can catch it and how you can prevent it. And then they had posters, and they had videos, and they had all kinds of stuff. It was awesome what they did. I was very, very impressed by the work they put into this. And it all, because they had a sense of humor about things. Meanwhile, a couple of years ago, the state health department, my state health department, was still debating whether we need a YouTube channel or not. So, but blogging, I have found, and this is kind of that rise again of content marketing. Blogging is, I think, the best way that you can share content and share big ideas with people. When I was doing this back in 2002 and 2000, I didn't tell you the end of that story. We went from 5% of total sales with our coil to 50% of total sales with our coil because I was able to sell rolls at full price, and I would sell 3 rolls, make $300. I'd sell 10 rolls, make $1,000. We would sell 300 rolls overseas and make $1,000. I could sell 10 rolls at full price and make $1,000. And my father-in-law said, okay, we're going to quit selling this stuff overseas. Let's just put all that time and energy into selling it to people. In that point, I'm just adding new information to a website, which, if you don't do web programming, it can be a pain in the ass. And if you do it, it's just a slightly less pain in the ass. But blogging is so much easier. Blogging is as simple as writing an email. And if you can write an email, you can write a blog post. And the great thing about blogging is that you don't have to share all of your information at once. You can just share it a little bit at a time. And so you can take 300 words or 500 words to explain something. And if you've got some big topic that you want to discuss, instead of writing one big topic, you break it down into 5 or 6 little topics, and you write about it over 5 or 6 days. If you do this enough, you will be the expert at whatever you're writing about. And there are other people who are trying to write about the same thing, but if you can do it more than them, or even as much as them, you will be that expert. And so in 2007 and 2008 and 2009, I started writing about social media and blogging. And I also started writing about direct mail. I was supposed to talk about direct mail with people, but because I was talking about and doing blogging also, people would want to have meetings with me to talk about blogging. I was like, no, my boss is going to have to talk about direct mail. So I became the blogging expert because I'm writing about blogging. Now I get to be the blogging expert and actually get paid to do that. But it's all because I am blogging and sharing my information, 300, 400, 500 words at a time. How many people have a blog? A few of you? How many people have a blog and you set it up a while ago and don't have it or don't use it anymore? A few of you? Yeah, don't worry. I'm not great about it. I don't do it every week like I should. I think my last post was 3 weeks ago. Because I actually have clients who use my stuff. That's the whole problem with shoemakers' children. But we've got this great format. It's actually been around for about 15 or more years. People think it's new. It's not new. It's only being adopted by businesses now. But we're starting to move into new areas like Google Plus as a way to share all of this information. Do we have any Google Plus users? I think, how many people have Gmail? You have access to Google Plus right now. If you go to plus.google.com and log in with your Gmail account, you will have your Google Plus account. You also, because you have Gmail, you have access to every property and technology that Google owns. So you have a YouTube channel, whether you know it or not. YouTube is owned by Google. And so just go to YouTube and log in with your Gmail account, and you've got your YouTube channel. Google Analytics. You can put Google Analytics on your blog or on your website, and you can see how it's performing. You've got access to that because you have Gmail. All of this stuff is free. Google Docs, or now Google Drive, you can upload word processing documents and spreadsheets and PDFs and even PowerPoint, or well, they're not PowerPoint, but they're slide decks. You can upload these to Google Drive because you have Gmail. So if you go to Google+, and I want to kind of share with you what Google is doing, you write a blog post. And I wrote this blog post several weeks ago, about the phrase "said is dead." And since I'm a writer, I take writing very seriously. I read what other writers have to say about writing. And this guy is writing about a friend of his who teaches freshman English at some college, and he's getting all these stories where people are saying, instead of the word "said," they're using all of these other words for "said." Laughed, replied, shouted, chuckled, cried, screamed. And he said, whatever happened to "said"? Why aren't you saying "said"? And a bunch of his kids said, oh, "said" is dead. We don't say "said" anymore. They said, where'd you learn that? He said, in school. You know, in high school. Our teachers want us to use other words other than "said." And as a writer, that's just, you know, I can tell you that's wrong. You shouldn't be doing that because you want words like "said" to not be noticed. Like the bass line of a good song. It's there, but you don't notice it until it's gone, or you don't notice it until it's played badly. And so "said" is that same thing. You skip over "said" in your mind and you don't really pay attention to it. But if people are using all these other words that you could be using, it becomes a little distracting. And so a lot of us have started writing about "said" is not dead. Don't use all these other words. So wrote the blog post, went to Google+, and I shared it. The thing I like about Google+ is that it's like Facebook for nerds. Because the only thing that people are talking about are actually serious topics of discussion. And you create circles. Instead of Facebook groups, you have Google+ circles. And you have these different circles of different friends. And maybe it's friends from work, or it's friends from your industry, or it's people you've met at a conference. Or it's even a private circle where only a few of you are in there and you're sharing stuff about a work project. But you share all of this relevant, important, valuable information with people you know. And so I started sharing this kind of stuff on Google+, and what I found was my article on "Stop Telling Students Said is Dead" ranked fairly high on Google. It ranked 4th, and you can't really see it, but you can see my picture there. I'll tell you, one of the reasons my picture showed up in the search results and nobody else's did is because I shared it on Google+, and I have a Google+ account. But the other thing, people in the back can't really see this, so if you want to come up and look, there's a little blob next to my search results. And if you look closely, it's a shadow on the bust, head and shoulders. And what that is saying is that somebody you are connected to on Google+ wrote this or shared this. And so we're going to put it up here for you to see. And so this is what's happening on Google. And this is what is starting to affect content marketing, is Google wants us to be good content marketers, but they also want us to have good relationships with people. And so somebody I'm connected with, me, wrote this article. So when I did a search for it, it said, hey, you're connected to somebody who wrote this. We thought you might want to see this. This is one of the things that I took away. In fact, I think it's the only thing I took away from graduate school. I almost have a master's degree in speech communication. And one of the things we learned was a thing called balance theory. And balance theory is basically what makes celebrity endorsements work. I like LeBron James. LeBron James likes Gatorade. Therefore, I like Gatorade. Right? If I don't like LeBron James, and LeBron James likes Gatorade, I probably won't want Gatorade because of this balance. We have to have this balance. And so Google is doing the same thing with their search engines, and Google Plus is, Anthony and I wrote down together. So let's say and I search for something that Anthony just happened to write a blog post about, or maybe he shared a different article about this. And what Google says is, well, Eric knows Anthony. Anthony wrote this. Eric would probably want to read this thing by Anthony. What that means for you as content marketers is when you know your audience of the people you want to reach, like you belong to the listserv of librarians, and you want to reach those librarians on a regular basis, not just in this one place, but in the other places where they will be, like Google, you connect with them on Google+. And you write about the things that they want to know about, because they're going to search for those things. And when they search for those things, your stuff is going to rank higher because of that connection. So that's what content marketing has become, is that it's not just enough to be smart, and it's not just enough to write about the stuff that you're doing a lot and being found on search engines. That's very, very important. But the other thing is you have to have the relationships with people so that they trust you. And they trust you because they know you, and they trust you because you're writing good stuff. And so when you combine those two things, you become the expert, and you become the reliable source of the people that they want to work with and the information they want to have. I was doing that, 13 years ago. I was doing that 13, 15, 18, 17 years ago when I was doing that with ARPA. People came to know me and trust me because I'm going to places where they are, answering their questions and not selling anything. And they're coming to my page because they searched for stuff and they found a lot of information. A lot of information that I probably should have kept hidden and kept secret because my competitors could also find it, but I didn't care if they saw it. I just had a lot of information and people trusted me, and I got to the point where instead of talking to somebody for an hour on the phone to sell them 3 rolls of arc oil, they called me up to give me their name and credit card number and then be done, because they had all the information. I got to the point where I became a trusted source about swine flu, even though I was no longer in that business, because I was out giving away information and telling people stuff I had learned 2 or 3 years before, and sharing that with them, making sure that everybody had that information. I did it enough that there's a PR company out of Chicago called Reagan, R-A-G-A-N, and Reagan.com. If you're in PR, they got great articles. They contacted me and said, hey, would you write an article about 5 social media tools that every crisis communicator should have? And I didn't tell them I wasn't in crisis communication anymore, and I hadn't been for 3 years, and I said, sure, I'd love to. And so I got a little bit of national exposure, and people got to know and trust me a little bit more about crisis communication and social media. The big secret, I said it earlier, it's just PR faster. Social media crisis communication is just do what you do on Facebook and Twitter, just do it, with a little more urgently. I really have to get this out. And now I'm doing that by doing content marketing by talking about blogging and talking about writing and talking about social media. People get to know me and trust me, and they read all of the information. I'm not holding anything back. I give away all the information for free, that if anybody wanted to read my blog and read all 4 years worth, they could do what I do. But then they decide they don't want to. I don't have time. We run a marketing agency. We don't have time to write blog posts, or luggage. We don't have time to write blog posts, or we're a tool and die company. We don't have time to write blog posts. We need the person who does it for a living and does it so much that they seem to be overflowing with information that they give away for free. I wonder if he's got something left in the tank that maybe he's not sharing. Let's hire him and find out. And that's what content marketing has become. We've gone from 1926, where one guy had an idea and everybody laughed at him for it, but it turned out to be an extremely successful ad. We went from there to where it's just TV spots and magazine ads with 2 words on it, and very simple and simplistic advertising. And we're getting back to the point where information is extremely important, because there's so much of it on the internet, and you have to be first, and you have to be right, and you have to be credible, and you have to be consistent. That's where content marketing is taken. Where is it going to go in the next 5 years? I don't know, other than it's going to go on your mobile phone. So you have to figure out how do we write for mobile. Other than that, words are still going to be important. Photos and videos are important. We have to do those on YouTube and on Flickr and Picasa, but words are going to be important for a long, long time. Yes? Let me see if I understand what you're saying. You've been told shorter is better, and I'm saying more is better or longer is better? Okay. Yeah, so that's what it's saying. The answer is more short is better. I always tell people keep your blog post right around 300 words, because if you go look at my blog post or any of my blog posts on your mobile phone or anybody's blog post, you will get 100 words per screen. And the people who study this kind of thing know that people will swipe about 2 more times before they get impatient and leave. So 100, 200, 300. That's where your 300 words comes in. People, if you're really good, they might stick around for one more screen. But typically they don't. And Google Analytics will tell us this. You can tell how long people stayed on your site. You can tell whether they came from mobile or not. And so you can see that, yeah, I wrote a 1,000-word piece that somebody spent 20 seconds on. They did not read all of that in 20 seconds. They skimmed it. People are skimmers. So rather than writing that one longer piece of 1,000 words, I'd rather you did even 5 pieces of 200 words. Here's an initial thought on this. Tomorrow I'm going to talk a little bit more about this. Tomorrow I'm going to talk a little bit more about this. I'd rather see that than 1,000 words. Does that make sense? Okay. Anybody else have any questions? All right. You can see it, ericdeckers.com. That's my personal blog. That's my humor blog. I write a newspaper column in 10 newspapers around Indiana. That's where I republish it. ProBlogService.com is my work blog where I talk about blogging and writing on social media. And then I'm eDeckers on Twitter, and you can reach me at eric.deckers@gmail.com. I'll be around all day if you've got any questions. I'm also doing the healthcare roundtable at noon. And Jenny, what are we doing now?
Okay, I forgot to mention, we have great big events here, and I know people that are sponsoring this year are doing some great prizes, so make sure you stop and check out. I know we have a website design company. I mean, we have the malls. I mean, lots of great things going on, and I know of one, Tri-State Living Magazine is doing a drawing for an ad, so I know you PR marketing people will love that. Discounts on website design, lots of information from the Beacon and WKE, so please take time to visit the tables. Thank you, Eric Deckers, for coming here. And we stood up.
Thank you. Thanks for coming.
And we encourage you to tweet today, share with your friends or anybody that follows you. We are #BAM2013. So anything. The BAM 2013. We probably have a different one from last year, but just feel free to tweet what's going on and share with others. And if you came in late, just want to let you know on the schedule, if you're for the next 2 sessions, if it's an M for the marquee room, it will be right here in the main theater. So, and we probably won't be on schedule at all today, but just do the best you can. Lunch plan, there's a Burger King and a Starbucks. Feel free to grab some food and come back to your roundtable session. Roundtables will be at the roundtables up here, and the healthcare roundtable, which is how to do content marketing, healthcare focus, will be in the marquee room in the front. So feel free to grab some lunch and be part of some of those informal discussions. So thank you all, and have fun at the rest of your sessions, and I'm here to help direct you if you're going to the